As far as my career, it's like I've just been in this stagnant place. I bought a building, started my own dental practice. 2 years later, still isn't even open yet. We still have construction. So it's just this disconnect where I'm just like, I know everything is set up right now for me to just tear the world apart, but for some reason, something's preventing me from taking that next step. And if maybe it's just because my life is too good right now, just don't want to mess it up because it's just too easy. Or
no, maybe you did it for somebody else.
Well, that's the other thing.
That is the other thing. So yeah, you did it for them, and you didn't do it for yourself. Maybe you're not really a pediatric dentist. I understand the gravity of the things that I'm saying to you, by the way. But this is just how I do this. Like, you know, I'm not telling you don't do that, right? A lot of money's been invested, like you have a nice thing set up for yourself, but it's gotta be for you. And so you have to dismantle the fact that it's for your parents. Because I don't think it's gonna please them anyway, to be blunt. It's gotta be for you. And you know, it doesn't sound like there's a lot to connect to there anyway. Like they feel very like nuts and bolts and rigid structures to me. And like, that's not always like, maybe they're not in touch with who they are even. So then why would they raise a child to be in touch with who that child is? So I'm kind of leading up to letting you know that like, I don't think you really know who you are because it was decided for you. And this is the beginning of a process for you to find out who you actually are, but it may not be who you thought. And I doubt it's a pediatric dentist.
I'm blown away by Brent, and it's like when you spend time with him, you clearly see that this man is of this planet, but perhaps maybe not.
He has an ability to see into people. He does. I saw him do it to other people, and I almost felt like he was doing it to me.
He introduced himself as a therapist and asked us not to hold that against him. And I appreciated that because what he's doing is not therapy. But he is grounded in a lot of education around that and around psychology. I think he sees now, though, that that's just the base for him, and his ability to intuitively connect with people is what actually sets him apart from every other therapist, counselor, psychology major that I've already talked to.
My name is Brent Charleton, and I'm an executive coach and a licensed psychotherapist. I started in the field in 2001. And as far as this current incarnation of doing work, I would say it's been about 12 years, hardcore about 8 years.
And what makes Brent special is he has this ability to see things that other people can't. And not only other people, but just other therapists, healers, gurus, whatever you want to call them. He's able to actually kind of peer through the veil, because the way I looked at it was like I was wearing a mask like for years before I came and saw Brent, and Brent was able to just go right through it and just go right into it and just be like, okay, no, this thing that you're doing, it's because of this, this, and this, and then like knowing intuitively that it's very true.
I had already had a lifetime of not understanding why I knew things that I knew. Just kind of knew what people were really thinking or what they were feeling, even if they didn't seem to know it themselves. I mean, like when I was a little kid, I mean, I would know when adults were lying, and even though there's no way for me to really know that, I would know what people were feeling, even if it didn't match what was on their face or how they were acting. So you see how like he drew a door, and I was like, oh, I'm drawn to that. That's not like some magical thing. I'm like, oh, that what's meant for me is like, and it was what I saw, like a door slamming. And then you went right to the place of, hey, this is what happened when I was a kid with my parents. So that's not magic. It's just like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and then it kind of triggers something in you, and then you bring that to the group.
You know, I'm not a spring chicken. This isn't my first weekend workshop, and I feel like I've done a lot of personal work. I've been working on myself for a long time and looking for answers, and I've only realized from this weekend, however, that I've been trying to work with the same reoccurring problem.
Like, I have been working on myself for a really long time. I've seen therapists, I've seen coaches, I've read a lot of books. There was always like a missing piece that a therapist couldn't help me with, a bug post or a book can really help me with. So it's been interesting to not just learn that, but actually go through it and see others experience it as well.
So how it kind of really, when it started to click with me when I was a young clinician, was I would work with someone on like depression or anxiety using the tools I've been trained in, plus my kind of own ideas a little bit, and they would get better, which was shocking. People were like, oh, you're good at this. And I was like, okay, I guess. I don't know. This doesn't seem to, I don't understand why this is working. But they get a little bit better. And then like a month later or whatever, they'd be like a gambling addict. And I was like, what? Or, I mean, that's just one example. Like I was plugging holes. So I would like do some of the treatments that were traditional, mixed with my own kind of just talking to people. But I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Because it was like, oh, you get a little better over here, and then this part of your life blows up. Your relational problems increase, but your work life seems to be better. It didn't make any sense to me. And then I just realized, oh my gosh, I'm just plugging holes. I'm not getting to the root. And so I started to realize that there was something missing from the interventions and the work that I learned in school, as well as just missing from kind of how the field of psychology works and how traditional therapy is set up. The problems that people have, and I don't mean they're not real, but understand like depression, anxiety, procrastination, drug addiction, relational problems. I don't care what it is. The reason people go to see like a therapist is those problems. What traditional therapy does is it's a set of theories and principles and some application that targets these. What I know, and what I've been doing for years with people, and I'm doing with you right now, is helping understand that those are not actually the root of the problem. They are symptoms of the root problem. So working in public health for many years and working with people that were really struggling, I learned a lot about what was going on with people, and also that there were things at the core of a person that were off, that were causing them to have problems. So then after that, I started kind of moving into private practice and doing work with what I call a higher functioning population. It's kind of how it's talked about. And I noticed that they had a lot of the same problems, just not at the same level as the lower functioning clients. So I really started to get serious about the fact that there is something missing at a core level that psychology, the general field, is missing. And so I started to seek out, people that were working on this thing called core issues. And basically, as I already mentioned to you, it's impossible for your parents or your caregivers to meet all of your needs growing up. They're just people, and they have their own issues going on. So you develop a woundedness, essentially, because those needs were not met. And so you're like a little kid, and up to the age of about 6 or so, you have enough stuff going on where your needs aren't met, where you then develop this other part of yourself that I call the adapted teen. And basically that part is going to go out and meet the needs of that wounded child that were not met by their caregivers. The reason it's adapted teen is it's how a teenager thinks an adult would act or thinks what the adult choice would be. And then over here you have a functional adult. It's not a chronological adult. There are plenty of chronological adults that do not live as functional adults, as I'm sure you know. So, right, everybody raise their hand.
I'm confident that I'm going to use this because of its simplicity. It's such a simple framework that it's given me a foundation for how to understand where I'm coming from when I feel certain ways, and how to relate to myself and how to relate to others. And I feel more dynamic. I am more present.
And I already see myself approaching issues differently, I think, because I have a new way of understanding what's actually going on. I have a new way of understanding, like, okay, when these emotions, when these feelings, or when these habits and patterns come up, I actually have like a framework for identifying exactly how all the dots connect. And not only that, I have a framework for doing something about it.
I was treating myself like crap. These emotions I was giving to myself were the same emotions that my mom and dad had conditioned me into giving myself. They were the same way my mom and dad treated me, and now I was treating myself like that. And that was an exploding my brain was just like boom, boom. I was like, whoa, I can't believe it.
So if a feeling is fully expressed, meaning it's expressed to yourself. So basically, I'm not saying that you have to express it to other people, but it looks like this. You have your thought, and it starts to create like a feeling energy. If the feeling is fully expressed, because look at all this energy it's making, right? Basically, it builds, it has a peak, and if it's fully expressed, it leaves. But this is what happens. Whenever you're a little kid, and let's say that like you're like a little boy or girl and you're walking, you're like 2, 3, okay? You're walking and like you fall down and you hurt yourself. And so what little kids do is they start to cry. Well, what if mom or dad is late or they don't want to deal with that? And they're like, cut it out, let's go. As soon as a parent does that, I mean like the first time that that occurs, you go, I'm not supposed to be expressing this pain because daddy doesn't like it or mommy doesn't like it. And literally, you stuff it. This unexpressed feeling is a problem. It's one of the things that gums up the works and causes you to get triggered. So what causes you to bounce into this child and teen place on those 4 core issues are 3 things. This is one of them, and it's an unexpressed feeling, okay? All they have to do, by the way, is this. Oh, that hurts. Yeah, that does hurt. Are you ready? Come on. That's it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you little baby, and like all this other stuff. Like, that's not really required. That's more about the parent and what they're doing. The child just needs to be witnessed and approved of. That's all. And I want to be clear, this work is not about blaming your parents. It is impossible for your parents to give you everything that you need. They're just people. And then I believe how all this works is that we're designed and made and meant to give what we didn't get to ourselves. The reason that I think that we don't get everything that we need from our parents because we're not supposed to. And then you're supposed to figure out a way to kind of fill in the gaps and give it to yourself. I just didn't see that way available. And so I made a way.
My life is completely different before meeting Brent and now today. Both in like a personal level as well as like a business place, like where I'm at, just because I can deal with my emotions a lot better. I can process things a lot better and make better decisions.
So if you can reclaim this ability to feel, reclaim and widen your affective range, your ability to feel, that is healing.
I didn't expect to have the release that I did. Like, it was a very big emotional thing. In 3 days, I just feel so different already. And I feel like I've dealt with a lot of the things that I've been carrying around with me for maybe my whole life.
It's difficult to move backward now. I mean, I've experienced such peace and just kind of a release of stuff I really didn't realize I was carrying, and living in just a space of just not being super present and healthy. And so now I'm just more interested in moving forward and using these tools. Like, now I have actual tools. I have stuff I can use, not just theories. I know exactly now how I can start to correct these things.
I can't wait to go home and like start working through the whole list of things that I've been like typing into my phone all weekend.
Literally, I did one exercise and felt like 1,000 pounds off of me. And I'm like, oh my God, if I could do this 10 times, it's 10,000 pounds off of me. And that is exciting. Like, the light at the end of the tunnel feels really, really light.
The things that you are not aware of are these things. They are ego states. They are core issues. They are a lack of boundaries, and they are an ability to identify your feelings. That's all. It's very, very simple. When those things are on board and they are applied in the way that I've built, people get free. They really do. They are able to step out of how they thought of things and step out of these chronic behaviors where they feel stuck. You know, I mean, I almost feel like correction is too fancy. It should just be called get unstuck or something like that. Because people are stuck, man. They're stuck.
With things like this, like, you really have to dig deep, and you really have to want to actually fix some of the things that are in your life. Like, for me personally, like, it took me, I've been doing personal development stuff since I was 16. I'm 29 now, and I literally just did it, you know, I've been working with Brent's system for about a year. So it took me like over a decade to get to a point where I just was so frustrated with everything that I'd been doing that I said, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something better. It definitely changed mine. It was a sea change in terms of how I looked at things.
I think the most common change or what to expect after is that people calm down. Like literally things are not as dire. They're not as high strung about everything. They're also not as child oriented either. So they're basically less triggered. They think more clearly. They're not led as much by their emotional reactions to everything, and that happens right away. Because then you're not acting in the way that everybody expects you to act. You're not doing what you've always done. You're not pleasing other people as much. That's how change works. And then you have a way, and you have all the tools you need to then implement those changes in ways that are a little less exacerbating. But I would say also the biggest thing is awareness. People have a profound shift in their thinking. They then have a framework. It provides a frame. So it's like, this is where I came from, this is what my life was. I have a way and a lens to understand that. That's huge for people, and that's super healing too. And it causes you to calm down. It's like, okay, I kind of understand this. And then it provides a way to work with yourself in the moment. It's a powerful process. So a lot of the results afterward, like how they play out, is people's relationships change a lot. So they stop holding other people responsible for what it is that they think and feel. That's a huge result. In other words, that's a tremendously different shift. And so therefore they have better relationships. A lot of people also make better business decisions. They make better decisions around money. They're not as triggered around that. Therefore, maybe they make more. That's not the intention, but it is a byproduct of this work. People do make more money. They tend to be more comfortable with themselves. Things that they wanted to accomplish, they have a way to accomplish them. Because you have to get yourself out of the way, so to speak, right? We all know that. Like, oh, you gotta get yourself out of the way, that's the problem. But how do you do that? And there is a way to do it, and this is a way to do it.